good evening to all our participants here on Zoom and all the viewers on Facebook. Welcome to the 7th episode of True Talks for Coaches, a live masterclass for coaches and people who want to become coaches and help other people transform their lives and achieve their goals. I am Mamta Sharma, Director, iChar Support Foundation, and a coach myself. At iChars, we are relentlessly working towards helping coaches and therapists develop advanced coaching and therapeutic skills. To answer our questions, we have with us Nitin Shah, founder and director, iCharge and iCharge Support Foundation. Good evening and welcome, Nitin.
Good evening, Mamta. How are you?
I am good. Before I go forward, I would like to share with everyone about the workshops and initiatives that are underway at iCharge right now. The Cognitive Hypnotic Coaching and Therapy course is being conducted online now. You can check our website www.ichars.com. That is www.icharge.com. In addition, we are also conducting specialized counseling certification workshops for anxiety counseling and relationship counseling. And coaches can also attend the relationship workshop for if they want to specialize in relationship coaching. We also run a live support group for psychologists every Tuesday evening and a peer coaching group every Sunday morning where coaches can practice by coaching each other. So feel free to ask any questions, share any comments in the respective chat boxes on Zoom and FB as we proceed through our episode today. Now for a quick recap, so far in this series, we have discussed about what coaching is, how is it different from mentoring, training, and therapy, what are the various coaching specializations, the different coaching models and coaching competencies. So especially in coaching competencies, we spoke about establishing the coach-coachee relationship, following ethical guidelines and professional standards, how to use and what are the effective communication skills, facilitating learning and results through increasing awareness, inviting possibility, ecological goal setting, and designing a crystal clear plan of action that the client can act upon. So, Nitin, today we are going to talk about, you said that we'll look at soft C in the soft C model in great detail, along with how it can help us address both conscious and unconscious hindrances and how people can benefit by visiting a coach or where all can a coach help someone. So, since we spoke about conscious unconscious hindrances, can you elaborate on that a little to begin with?
So, Mamta, before I elaborate on the conscious and conscious hindrances, I want you to kind of think about it and tell us what do you think are the major challenges that stops a client from achieving their outcome. And to an extent, we have already covered this in previous episodes, but I just want you to kind of summarize that for all of us so that from there we can take it forward.
All right. So if I was to begin at the beginning, some clients may not even know to begin with what is happening in their life currently. So we always talk about how people want to move from point A to point B. So they may not even know what point A is for them. The next thing could be they cannot define a desired outcome. So a lot of people have vague goals, things like I want to be rich, I want to be fit, and so on. They may not even know what their desired outcome is, which is point B. Or B may not be motivating enough for them to actually start taking action towards it because they do not understand the clear and concrete benefits of reaching B. Then they may not have a plan of action to move from A to B. They may have a vague plan of action which is not executable. So that may be missing. They may not be able to act upon it. For some reason, they can't really take action. So even if they know what needs to be done, either it's not clear enough, either it's not chunked down enough, or they simply lack the mental state to work towards that. And from previous episodes, we have also spoken about other things that may stop a person from taking action towards their desired outcome. So we spoke about lack of clarity, resources, skills, and obviously the mental state.
Perfect. So I think that's a really good and comprehensive summary, so as to say. Let's take it forward from here.
Yeah.
Right. So when we talk about a really powerful coaching model, would it be fair to say that that model should be able to address all of these challenges?
Absolutely.
right? Most standard coaching models already address some of the challenges that we've spoken about, right?
Okay.
So if we have already discussed earlier how we begin by defining the current state of a person,
Correct.
right? And we mentioned that we begin generally by defining it in terms of I feel dash 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 about dash dash and when dash dash dash,
Correct.
right? We also discussed how it's important for us to create a set what the desired outcome is, right? Now, most coaching models follow the smart coaching approach, right? Or the smart goal setting approach. We have a slightly modified version of that in terms of creating a highly sensory specific outcome, right? But basically, the objective is the same, that we are helping people create a future mentally so that they understand why this future is important for them. And then eventually, obviously, it becomes a, a hook that drives them to take action, right? Next is creating a detailed plan of action. I think it was in the previous episode that we discussed that for us, a detailed plan of action is such that even a 6-year-old child should be able to understand what is the next step that I'm supposed to take. True. So till here, we have actually already covered. Now let's take it forward, because these are all more conscious hindrances. People know that these are the hindrances that they have. The key challenge when you're working with clients
Yeah.
is to also be able to help them address their unconscious hindrances, right? And why it's a key challenge is because, as the name suggests, these are unconscious hindrances,
Right.
right? So many a times both the coach and the coachee are stuck because they don't really know how to proceed from here.
Hmm.
While, like we discussed earlier, that being an accountability partner is a good starting point, but that may not necessarily be it. There may be a lot more that we may need to do for this.
Perfect. Nitin, when you say unconscious hindrances, can you shed some more light on that or give us some examples?
Okay. So let me define unconscious hindrances first.
Yeah.
So for me, unconscious hindrances are any hindrances that a client is experiencing, which are stopping them from taking action.
Right.
Hindrances that they consciously may or may not be aware of,
Right.
but are not able to change consciously.
True.
So to give you an example, okay, let's say a client says that I know uh, I need to wake up in the morning, but for some reason I'm not able to wake up. Right? So here they're not even aware of the reason. So this becomes one example of unconscious hindrance.
Right.
There are also places where clients will come and tell you, I know I need to get up in the morning. I also know that in the morning I feel lazy and lethargic. I try my level best to sleep early, and I'm also sleeping early now. But वो सुबह में I still feel lazy and lethargic. मतलब whether I sleep in the night at 10 o'clock
Yeah.
or I sleep in the morning at 2 o'clock. When the alarm rings in the morning at 6:30,
Yep.
in both cases I feel lazy and lethargic. And I've tried everything consciously, logically that I can do to feel fresh. But morning I can't feel fresh. So again, that becomes an unconscious hindrance. So
Correct.
while the client is consciously aware of the fact that they're feeling lazy, but they are not able to change that. You can have like more layered issues. For example, a client may also say that I know I feel lazy in the morning because the moment the alarm rings, I have this image of a kambal and a bed in front of me, of the
Yeah.
blanket and the bed in front of me,
Yeah.
right? Or I have this thought in my head 10 more minutes.
Correct.
So I'm aware of that also, but I'm not able to change that. In the morning, in spite of my awareness of that, I struggle. So that for us becomes an unconscious hindrance because the client is consciously not able to change that.
Perfect. So whenever people say that, I just don't feel like doing it, or, like a student saying, the moment I look at the books, I simply pick up my phone and I start doing something else.
So, okay, so let me put it this way. When people say I don't feel like doing it,
Hmm.
if they really don't feel like doing it, then they wouldn't even be coming to us.
Right.
Right. So technically what's happening is at one level, they feel like doing it.
Correct.
They know it's important for them to do it.
Right.
But there's some part of them that is stopping them from doing it.
Correct.
Right. And that's where the challenge comes in.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And because they're consciously not able to control that part of them, which is not feeling like doing it, is why it becomes an unconscious hindrance.
Correct. Perfect. Perfect. So how will SoftC help us first identify them and then work towards overcoming them?
So when it comes to SoftC, one of the steps that we do in SoftC is identification of these unconscious hindrances.
Okay.
Right? So I touched upon this in one of the previous episodes when we were talking about the different coaching models. Right. I'm going to briefly cover that because then we can move on to how to actually handle it and how to take care of that. Right?
Perfect. Yeah.
So let's say the client gives us a plan of action. And the plan of action is about, give me an example. What do you want me to take the plan of action for? What outcome?
Okay. So I want to create a website.
Okay. So in order to create a website, let's say you give me a plan of action. And the plan of action is that I need to connect with my friends who have created a website so that I can find the right person.
Correct.
And I need to call up that person.
Correct.
I know that person will ask me for content. So I'll need to create content.
Right.
I will also have to search for existing templates or themes that I can recommend to that person, that this becomes the reference point.
Correct.
Right. I want my website to be a bit fancy website. So I also want to add certain images and videos on it. So I would need to work on the video content. Further, I'll have to create scripts, record videos, edit videos.
Correct.
Right? And probably show it to a couple of my friends so that they can tell me whether this works or not.
Yeah.
Create certain images.
Yeah.
Right? Now, you've already told me all of this.
Not necessarily, Nitin, because when you were like kind of laying it out, I realized how so many people will have just this as a task, create a website. But when you just broke it up, and I think a lack of clarity on what all do I need to do, that is one what makes it look so big and not doable, and I may not know where to begin, what to do first.
Okay. So my assumption is if you're using any coaching model,
okay,
even if it's not SoftC,
okay,
they should have been able to do this for you.
Okay.
Okay. If they've not been able to do this for you, then there's something seriously wrong with the approach that is being followed.
Right.
Okay. So let's assume for a moment that all of this information you have either given me or I've asked you the question to elicit this information from you.
Right.
Right. Now we have all these steps. But do you really think that in spite of knowing all the steps, you would be able to take all of them?
No, not at all. Especially, let's say when it comes to creating a video. I may be a really good speaker, but when the camera comes in front of me, or when I have to sit in front of the camera, I just become a dummy. I freeze, or what I say comes out so robotic or plastic.
Perfect. So now when you say that, would it be one of the challenges that you're facing which will stop you from recording videos?
Absolutely.
Right. Now, what may be happening which is causing you this hindrance? What makes you freeze in front of a camera, or anyone in front of a camera for that matter?
I start wondering, how will it come out well? Will it look okay? Will it look professional enough? And is what I'm wearing good enough? Is my hair right?
So would it be fair to say that it will either be a thought or an emotion, or a combination of the two in most cases actually, that will stop you from taking that action?
Yeah. And as a result, obviously not feel confident enough. So that becomes an emotion. Yes.
Correct. And you can actually apply this to any task that a client is not able to do, right? The client may be comfortable recording a video, may not be comfortable creating content. What stops them from creating content will again be certain thoughts or emotions.
Correct.
Right? In a different context altogether, let's say a client is comfortable someone who wants to manage weight is comfortable doing everything else, but is not comfortable going to a gym. What stops him from going to a gym will again be some thought कि कौन जाएगा, इतनी मेहनत कौन करेगा, कुछ होता तो है नहीं उसकी वजह से. There's nothing that really happens over there. Or I have been trying to work out for months and it's not really helping me.
Right. Trainer पूछेगा कल गड़बड़ की थी डाइट में. What will I say?
Which will be another one. That यार अच्छा जिम के लिए तो I would go, but when the trainer asks खाने का क्या हुआ ना, I'll say अच्छा कल तो I had gulab jamun. Now obviously that becomes a problem.
Or Nitin, simply the moment I enter, the trainer will tell me to step on the weighing scale.
Which can again be, so the moment I step on the weighing scale, what if my weight is not reduced? What if it has increased? All of these are thoughts and emotions that I'm experiencing, which is stopping me from taking the next step, right?
Correct.
You took the example of a child about studying.
Books, yeah.
Books. When the child says that I get distracted. When you actually ask the child, eventually the child would say that either I feel that this is boring, it's not interesting, or like in case of maths, I had one of these students who said, I feel as if numbers come till here, but they don't enter in. I can see them till my eyes, but they don't enter in.
Correct.
Right? So I have this thought that I would never be able to figure it out. I will never be able to understand this. If the client has all of these thoughts, okay, you can push them, you can force them, you can act as an accountability partner, and they may, because you're acting as a teacher over there, listen to you and take actions. But those actions will still not be as effective and as driven as you or the client would like it to be, which would eventually influence their results and performance. Right? And with coaching, we are very, very sure that we want to focus on results.
Absolutely, yes.
So the idea is not just that the client goes and is able to do certain things. The idea is the client is able to do it and do it effectively.
Correct.
Right? So anything that can take away from the effectiveness of the client,
right,
is something that we would like to take care of, that we would like to address.
Yep.
And that's where working with unconscious hindrances come in. I hope this kind of clarifies why unconscious hindrances are important to work upon.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. Now coming to your question of how do we actually address this?
Yeah.
Right? So depending upon what the hindrance is, right? From a coaching point of view, we break hindrances into different layers.
Okay.
The primary layer after creating a plan of action is that there are certain real-time thoughts.
Okay.
I've given you some of the examples for that.
Yes, yes, yeah.
Then there are certain real-time emotions.
Okay.
Things that I feel when I'm exposed to the trigger where I have to do something. Right? So for example, I have to wake up in the morning. When the alarm rings, that's a sign that I'm supposed to wake up. The moment the alarm rings, I feel lazy, lethargic, or I have a thought in my head 10 more minutes.
Correct.
Right? So lazy, lethargic, bored will become the feelings. 10 more minutes will become thoughts, but these are all ongoing thoughts and emotions. That's what I'm experiencing in the moment when I'm supposed to take action.
Correct.
Right? Then there are certain thoughts, certain emotions which have been there for a long period of time, and they are not just associations. They are also being driven or powered by a deeper belief.
Yes.
Then to be able to identify that belief, and because for most people, beliefs are at an unconscious level. So to be able to identify those beliefs is the next step.
Okay.
And obviously to work upon that belief.
Okay.
We also have what we call as secondary gains or positive intentions. I'm not sure if we have discussed that during the the True Talks for Coaches sessions or not. But just to summarize that, there are places where people are deriving alternate benefits by not achieving their outcome. Right? Can you think of an example and tell me what, if there's something that you're not able to do and there's a benefit that you're deriving out of it, what could that be?
Okay, so I have a client who says that whenever I am idle and I can't figure out what to do, I pick up a cigarette. So will that fall under this category? So they're trying to fulfill or complete, or trying to feel a sense of not feeling lonely.
Correct. So is this clear of how if the person wants to quit that, they are not able to quit it because there's a benefit they're deriving out of it,
Yep,
right? So that becomes a secondary gain.
correct.
Now, if you ask the client to give up that habit or that behavior
Mm-hmm.
without really helping them find something else that will create the same positive intention, would they really do it?
Can you repeat that?
So, for example, if you ask the person to stop that behavior
Okay.
that was helping them not feel lonely,
Huh?
right, without giving them something else so that they can take care of loneliness.
Nope, nope. Even if they do for a while, they'll come back to it.
Correct. And this is actually what happens with a lot of people who have relapses,
Right.
right?
Right.
Now, that is a secondary gain that we need to be able to identify and address. In your case, the example that you gave was of a client who probably was aware of what the positive intention is, or you were able to help him questions to identify the positive intention.
Right, right.
In most cases, the secondary gains itself are at the level of unconscious.
Okay.
Right? An example would again be someone who has psychosomatic aches and pains.
Correct.
Right? If you ask them, what is the benefit that you're deriving out of creating this pain? They would not be able to understand. They would think you've gone crazy.
Yeah.
Right? But when you work with those people and if you have the right set of processes, that's exactly what turns out.
Right.
So a lot of our behaviors that we are doing are driven by benefits that we are deriving out of it, knowingly, unknowingly, right? And to be able to identify those benefits, address those benefits so that we can change the behavior is another component of how the SOFT-C process works.
Okay.
Right? And then you can also go into values. So technically positive intention will come later. You will work with beliefs, values. In NLP, there's something called as meta programs. Right? So we'll work with all of these things. And once we have worked with all of this,
Yeah.
it's unlikely that the client will not be able to create a change that is more intrinsic, which means you don't have to act as a teacher for them. They are naturally able to do it because they want to do it, they feel comfortable doing it, and there is no internal conflict for it.
Right. Right. And that also means that the change will last, right?
This is probably the only way that the change will last without an internal conflict, without the client fighting with themselves.
Perfect.
The only exception to this, obviously, is where the problems are driven by deeper emotions, like really intense traumatic experiences and so on. Then in that case, we need to look for therapy. It's no longer a coaching case.
Okay.
Now, I've actually discussed with you the different levels of problems.
Correct.
At each level, there is a different technique that you can use.
Okay.
Okay. So, for example, when we talk about thoughts, we need to restructure the thoughts.
Oh, yes.
Right. Now, what does thought restructuring mean? We took an example of waking up in the morning. Currently, when I wake up in the morning, the thought is 10 more minutes. If I want to restructure the thought, what do I want to do?
Have another thought.
And in what would be a thought that you will have that will actually wake you up in the morning?
So for me, it will be, so if I can wake up early, I can do more things in a day. I'm always running out of time. So
in the morning, when the alarm rings, if your first thought is, let's wake up, I'll be able to do more.
Yes.
Instead of 10 more minutes. If this was your first thought, then would you wake up in the morning?
Yes, of course.
For sure.
That's the only thing that could drive me.
Perfect. Brilliant. Now, like you found what would drive you, we would check with the coachee that we are working with or the client that we are working with. What is that particular thought that will wake them up? Right? Now, what I have is the trigger. The trigger in this case is the alarm. So basically, trigger represents when do I know it's time for me to do something.
Right.
I also have the old thought, which was stopping me from taking action.
Correct.
And the old thought and the trigger was kind of connected to each other. So every time the alarm rang,
Yep.
I naturally had a thought saying 10 more minutes.
Yep.
Now I know the new thought.
Right.
The new thought is
Waking up now means making the most of 24 hours, making
Perfect.
the most of the day that I have.
Making the most of the day that I have. So waking up now means making the most of the day that I have.
Right.
So what I really need is to be able to replace the old thought with this new thought,
Yes.
with the same strong association,
That would be miraculous, ideal.
right? So when the alarm rings in the morning, the moment the alarm rings, your first thought is that waking up now or waking up early would help me make the best of most of the day.
Yeah.
Correct? Right? Now, how do I create an association between these two? How do
Yeah.
I connect the
I'm
two?
waiting for you to say that. Yeah.
Think and tell me, what can I do?
What can you do? Um,
Okay, so let me kind of put it this way. What will be the easiest way of creating an association? Because that's what we are doing. We are creating an association between the trigger and the new thought, right? So how does association develop, or how does conditioning happen? This is conditioning.
when I go through the same thing over and over again.
So when I go through the same thing over and over again, then a strong bond or a strong association develops.
Correct.
So I need to now associate through repetition the trigger and the new thought.
Correct.
So we use a format for this.
Okay.
And the format is when the trigger,
Yes.
then I realize the new thought.
So when the alarm rings, then I realize waking up now means making the most of my day.
Perfect. Is this idea clear?
Yeah.
Right. Now the next step will be, once you've created the sentence,
Hmm.
I would ask you to repeat this sentence like 5-6 times.
Okay.
So can you do that quickly?
Yes, I can do that. So I have to say it out aloud?
No, you can do it mentally.
Okay.
And all of you are on the Zoom, or if you are watching us on Facebook, if you want to do this, go ahead and do this, because this can be really interesting and magical.
Can I change the statement a little?
So that's the whole idea why I'm asking you to repeat this. When you're repeating it, if you feel that something needs to change, tweak it so that it feels completely perfect.
Okay. Okay. So I turned it to when the alarm rings, then I realize waking up now means I can finish whatever is pending.
And as you repeat that in your mind,
Yeah.
does that give you an impression that when this works, it will really help you?
That's actually pretty exciting.
That's pretty exciting. And if you were to feel this excited in the morning,
Huh.
then would you wake up?
Absolutely, immediately.
Would you even need me to act as a accountability partner for you to wake up?
No, what if you have helped me figure this out, then
Perfect. Now, the idea is, how do we make this association even more strong?
yes.
And the way to work with that is to repeat it in this format. When this, then, so when the trigger, then I realize the new thought. And you will repeat this every day for the next few days.
Okay.
Now, why this works is because the mind has a very clear understanding or indication of when the new thought needs to be created. I've had a lot of people who have asked me, but Nitin, isn't this similar to affirmations? And affirmation, and the same people would say, but affirmations have not worked for us. So how do you think, why do you think that this will work for us? So the difference is, in affirmation, we have actually not given the mind a clear signal as to when this thought needs to be activated.
Right.
Think of your mind as a computer, right? You may have multiple applications in the computer,
Hmm.
but will those applications all remain active 24/7?
No.
If you were to activate every possible application that's there on your computer
Hmm.
and keep them active 24/7, what will happen with the computer?
It'll crash, hang, not
Correct?
work.
So if you were to think about every positive thought that you ever want to have in your life, and if you expected your mind to run those thoughts simultaneously 24/7, too much of information, the mind will get overloaded, it will hang.
Not humanly possible.
Not humanly possible. So even too many positive thoughts will make it hang it.
Yeah.
Right? So just like computer needs a very clear indication. How does a computer know that it has to open a Word file?
Because you click on a specific icon which triggers a specific program.
Perfect. So that icon is the trigger.
Yeah.
When you double click on it, then the system knows it's time for me to activate the particular software.
Yes.
Right? Or if you have a Word file with a docx extension, then when you double click on it, then the computer knows that, all right, docx extension file is clicked. Then open the file in
MS Word.
MS Word, right? So there's a very clear understanding of when a program is supposed to be activated.
Absolutely.
In affirmations, that is missing.
Yeah.
So you have a positive thought, but the mind doesn't know when to make use of this positive thought.
Hmm. Perfect.
What we are doing right now, the mind is being given a very clear indicator
Hmm.
that when this happens, then this.
Okay.
Does this make
Yes.
sense?
Absolutely.
Correct. Now it's very similar to when I say Hare Rama, what comes to your mind?
Hare Krishna.
When I say जोर से बोलो,
जय माता दी.
क्या चल रहा है?
फॉग चल रहा है.
Now, why is it that your mind is able to give you those responses so quickly?
I've heard them like a zillion times.
So you have heard them like a zillion times. There is a very clear again association between when first happens,
Oh,
then second happens,
absolutely.
right?
Right.
And third, it's all like rhythmic. It's like a chant,
Yeah.
right? That's exactly what when then statement does. So we are actually saying when this, then this, when this, then this, when the trigger, then I realize the new thought. It's
Got it.
literally like a rhythm, a tone playing in our head.
Right.
And the beauty about rhythmic things is at times they get stuck in your head. Have you ever had a situation where a song or a music got stuck in your head?
Yep. So many times, all the time.
Right? Now imagine if this tune gets stuck in your head. So much so that it gets programmed in your system. It's amazing, right?
Right.
Now, obviously, what we have discussed is the process, the technique.
Hmm.
In soft C, when you are learning it, you obviously learn to do it systematically. Right? You practice it with your clients or your co-colleagues. You practice it with yourself. You see the results in your life.
Right.
So all of this will then come handy.
Perfect.
So that's the way of working with thoughts. Right? Before, while I'm going ahead, if any of you have any questions, either on Zoom or on FB, please feel free to ask us. I would answer the questions either while I'm discussing the entire thing or in the end. But please ask those questions so that we can answer them before the end of the session.
Yeah. Perfect.
Perfect. Yeah. So is the idea of restructuring thoughts clear, Mamta?
Yes. Very much. Very much. In
The
fact, I'm thinking of all the other places. So one can create more of these, right?
Yeah. So my suggestion to you, actually, let's do this. Take
Okay.
10 seconds, 20 seconds.
Huh?
Think of 3 or 4 areas of your life where you really think that
Where
there are
you will-
certain thoughts where you really think that there are certain thoughts that stop you from taking action.
Okay.
Right? And then see if you can run the process for yourself in those 3 areas. Take like 20 minutes. And I would suggest this to all of you who are probably on the Zoom or on Facebook.
Okay. And we can also use this to stop doing something that we are doing.
Yeah, you can. So for example, I had one of these clients. So this is therapy, but I'm giving you example because it kind of is in the same context. So the client wanted to quit smoking. Okay. He said, every time I look at a cigarette, I know I tell myself this is the last one.
Correct.
And the last one never really comes, because then the next time when he smokes, he tells himself this is the last one.
It happens with a lot of people. Yes.
So I asked him, what would you like to replace it with? He said, when I look at a cigarette, if my first thought is my last one was my last one,
Yes.
then probably I wouldn't smoke.
That's smart.
So we did exactly the same thing. When I see a cigarette, then I realize my last one was my last one.
I would like to do that with desserts.
With desserts, actually, I did something different. So for example, I love eating desserts. I still love
Yeah,
eating
because
desserts.
the moment I said it, I realized I don't want to completely let go of it. I would like to have a dessert sometimes.
So what I do is, so for example, for me, gulab jamun was one of those things that I would love eating. I
Yeah.
still do, but obviously there was a time when I would overdo it.
Okay.
The thought that I came up with was that the taste after the first bite is the same taste which will remain after the 10th gulab jamun.
Right.
Right? Because what happens is you're trying to, if you're not hungry and if you're still eating your gulab jamun, why are you eating it? Because you're running after the taste.
Yes.
Right? But eventually the taste is going to remain the same.
Correct.
In fact, by the time I reach the 10th gulab jamun, the chances are I start feeling bad. Matlab, it's like overdose of that taste. And then second, dhire dhire guilt also starts cropping up. Ki yaar, ab thoda zyada kha liya.
Correct.
So it's not really making the process enjoyable. It subsequently makes the process more painful for me.
Correct.
But when I remember my first taste and my 10th gulab jamun taste will remain the same. After the first piece, I can stop now and effortlessly stop.
Right.
Right? So that's again another example of application of the when-then statement.
Great.
Then we looked at the emotions, right? For those of you who have done anchoring, who have done NLP, would know about anchoring. Anchoring is probably the most remarkable process to help people change their emotional states. Believe me, I currently conduct a therapy-based program which probably incorporates every major psychotherapeutic approach into a single approach. I haven't come across a technique which is as simple and as remarkable as anchoring is. Okay. The reason I'm saying this is while when then is very powerful, but when then is something which is not new. People have already tried doing it in different formats and different schools of thoughts.
Right.
Anchoring is, it amazes me how even today, so many different schools of therapy or so many different schools of coaching have not been able to incorporate that.
Okay.
Right. Now, what anchoring is basically, so let's say the client says, I want to wake up in the morning and I feel lethargic.
Right.
Right. And I ask the client, what would you like to experience instead of lethargy? Samantha, what would you like to experience instead of lethargy?
Excitement.
Excitement. Now, I can check with you. Has there ever been a situation in your life in the past where you felt excited about anything?
Yeah, when I'm working against a deadline.
So I'm sure you'll at least be able to pick up one such experience.
Yes.
Yes. Now, what I can do is I can take you back into that memory, help you create a strong association with that memory. The association will generally be touch based. So for example, I'll ask you to bring your index finger and thumb close and press it like this.
Okay.
Okay, while you are in that particular experience. And as you do this, we will associate this act with the feeling of excitement.
Okay.
Which means every time you do this, you experience excitement.
Okay.
Now, in the next process, I will connect this excitement with the alarm.
Okay.
That with every time the alarm rings, you naturally feel excited.
Okay.
Okay. It sounds magical, but when you actually do it in terms of a process,
Hmm.
you realize it can't get simpler than this.
So do I have to keep repeating it like in the thought exercise to
Generally,
basically to create the association?
no, generally anchoring is a one-time process where during the process itself,
Hmm.
I will repeat it multiple times for you.
Okay.
Okay. Once the process has been done correctly,
Hmm.
generally people don't need to repeat it again. At least not for the same emotion. If tomorrow you were to come and tell me that, Nitin, I would also like to experience confidence when I am gymming, then I can probably run the process again for confidence. But imagine, forget everything else. If you could create, these are like switches, right? These are emotional switches. If you can have switches in your body where you can decide, oh, I want to feel confident, I want to feel excited, I want to feel happy, right?
At will.
At will. And believe me, in years of work that I've had, when I've spoken to other therapists and coaches, this is one thing that they struggle the most with. How do I help the client change their feeling? Wo client tells me that in the morning I feel lazy. Now, what do I do about laziness? I have clients who tell me that I feel bored. What do I do about boredom? How do I generate excitement about it? Well, it's actually a lot more easier than we think. It's just that most of us don't even realize how to do it.
Right.
Right? So that's about working with emotions. Then comes the next part, which is the beliefs and values. Right? Uh, the NLP meta model questions is what we generally use for eliciting values and working with values. And then there are hypnotic processes that we use for identifying beliefs and working with beliefs. Right? In fact, in NLP also there's a belief change process, but I've noticed that many a times is a hit or a miss. When it hits, it's brilliant, but there are also chances that it may miss, and in which case you need to have a more advanced process to work with beliefs. Right? In fact, there is a process. So apart from the belief change process, there's another process in NLP called levels of transformation, which works on not just the belief. It actually looks at where does belief come from, which is our identity, and why do we see ourselves as individual identity disconnected from the infinite potential that we are. The overall process helps you connect to that potential and see if with that connection you can transform your identity, your beliefs, your skills, your behaviors, and obviously your resulting environment. When you combine that process with hypnosis, it's a different experience altogether. I've had participants, and these are people who are trainers and coaches, right? Who are becoming trained to become coaches and trainers, who have told me in the class that, Nitin, forget your entire program. Every penny that I've paid for this course multiplied by 10 is worth for this one experience. Now, the fact that I'm going to be able to use these techniques with clients and help them create a change is actually a bonus. And that's how powerful the process is when done correctly.
Of course.
Okay. And then lastly, we spoke about the positive intentions. So again, there's an NLP way of doing positive intention, which is with reframing. In the programs that we conduct, we combine that with hypnosis because that gives us like faster results, and it takes care of certain headaches that people have when it comes to the classical reframing process. Okay? But the process is actually straightforward. You guide the person into an altered state, help them connect to that part of them which is deriving benefit out of that particular behavior, and then you literally have a conversation with that part. It's like you're talking to a friend trying to identify why is the friend behaving in the way it's behaving,
Okay.
and then you help the friend address that behavior. Here the friend gets replaced by the part, and it's your part that you're connecting with. uh Interestingly, this is what spirituality or people who practice spirituality have been trying to tell people for years, that
Yeah.
you need to be able to connect with yourself, you need to be able to speak to yourself,
Look within.
you need to be able to look within and find the answers within. Okay.
Yeah.
And before I started learning about hypnosis and NLP and we converted that into the process that we use now,
Hmm.
I kept wondering, what do you really mean by connect with yourself? Whom am I connected to right now if it's not with myself?
Absolutely, yes.
Right? When you say have a conversation with yourself, but I am having a conversation with myself, I never had a process or a structure to have that conversation properly. And that's what the programs can help you get. Again, obviously, when we talk about soft C, when we talk about cognitive hypnotic coaching, for us, the idea is that people are learning how to work with others. But as a part of the program, whatever you're learning to do with others, you may as well do it with yourself, right? Well, it will be a tragedy if you say that I'm only going to use those processes with my clients and I'm not going to use it with myself.
Yes. Perfect. Yeah.
Right? So that's the positive intention bit. So within the framework of soft C, so actually what I've spoken to you about is more of cognitive hypnotic coaching, where we have also incorporated techniques from NLP, hypnosis, metaphors, and so on to be able to help people address the challenges they have. But when I talk about soft C, the idea with soft C is that's the framework that we are using, and all of this can get incorporated in the soft C process. The process goes in a structured way that you define the plan of action, you identify what the hindrances is. In those hindrances, check if there are thoughts, if there are emotions. Then know that you need to restructure thoughts. With cognitive hypnotic coaching, we have our ways of restructuring thoughts. But if you're not, let's say you have not done cognitive hypnotic coaching, you have done some other coaching model, you have learned something else to restructure thought, you can use that process with soft C. Right? The same is with anchoring. So while I think anchoring is a remarkably effective process, let's say you've done another course where they've taught you how to help people get in touch with certain experiences and emotions, and you prefer to use that process. Okay, the soft C model is flexible enough to incorporate any of these change processes. It just helps you understand what change needs to be created, and then you see what approaches you want to use to create those changes. Mute. You're mute, Mamta.
I said that sounds really exciting, and it also, like whatever you just spoke about, addresses, I think, if not all, almost all challenges that anybody who's helping people create change, meaningful change, comes across, right? Because mostly it's like, I can't do this, I can't stop doing this, I have no idea what is happening, and people do come to you because so they do want to change, but they have no idea why. And many people do not have the tools to help them do that. So this is, yes, this is very, very interesting.
Perfect. So
Okay.
let's see if there are questions and if we can address some.
So I have one question here on Zoom. Ruchi says, my sleep cycle needs major changing as I'm awake through the night and sleep till late afternoon. I'm going to try this, she says. Early to bed, early to rise. Okay, so that's not a question.
So Ruchi, when you try this, just one feedback or one suggestion. One of the things that I tell people is if you want to sleep early, not just put an alarm for getting up in the morning, also put an alarm for sleeping. Because when that alarm rings, then you can connect whatever the thought you want to connect with that alarm. That when the alarm rings, then I realize early to bed, early to rise. Right? In fact, when we spoke about anchoring, especially when it comes to sleep, there's another suggestion that we give to people, or there's another strategy that we tell people. And that strategy is use a particular pillow that you will only use for sleeping. So everything else that you do on your bed, use any other pillow or don't use a pillow.
Okay.
But when it comes to sleeping, when it's time for you to sleep, when you reach your bed, use that one pillow only and only for sleeping.
Wow. So the pillow itself becomes a trigger.
The pillow actually becomes the trigger to create that feeling of wanting to sleep. It literally creates a sleepy feeling.
Superb, superb. Okay, she says okay. Vikram has asked, what all can I do? Vikram, can you elaborate on that? Because it was like a few minutes ago that you had asked that. It must have some reference. If you can, mention that. Nishi is saying, I want to get rid of the memories that I had with a particular person.
So, hi, this is Vikram. So it was about the fact that when you had sent, what all can you think of? So I was just plugging in a statement for thinking, nothing else. It's not a question.
All right.
But
Perfect.
my question is that how to be more mindful of such things that I have to do this as a task. That is something that is my question.
Okay. So Vikram, there are a couple of things that can be done. So one is being mindful, and second is being able to recall. Right. Uh, if the idea is how do I develop, if the question is how do I develop mindfulness in general, right?
No, no, it's about the specific task.
All right.
So you picked up smoking,
Hmm.
and the statement that you gave that the last one was the last one.
Hmm.
How do I stay mindful with the fact that the next time that I pick it up, I think of the same fact that I have to be mindful of that. So probably what you're saying is the recall aspect.
Correct. So Vikram, in the way we work, you don't even need to be mindful of that. So what we do, and that's exactly the thing, that we are going to associate the idea of the cigarette in your hand with the thought, so that every time the cigarette is in your hand, you naturally have the thought. It's like, do you know of certain people whose face the moment you see, you feel happy?
Yep.
Or certain people whose face you see, you feel angry?
Yeah, yeah.
Right? Now, you don't have to look at their face and remind yourself what they have done to feel happy or angry.
True.
Right? The system literally knows, look at that person and feel happy. Look at this person and feel angry. Similarly, with when then statement, when we ask people to repeat it, and that's the way, it's actually a good question because probably we missed out on that. That the idea is to ask the client to repeat that statement to themselves whenever they have the time. Don't wait when you are going to have a cigarette in your hand, because us time pe yaad aana shayad difficult hai directly.
Correct.
But assign a time frame to yourself that every morning, let's say 10 o'clock, I will take out 20 minutes where I'll repeat this sentence to myself. Actually, 20 minutes to bahut zyada ho gaya. I'll probably take out 3 minutes and repeat this sentence to myself. When I have a cigarette in my hand, then I realize my last one was my last one.
Sure.
Do this every day for the next 4-5 days. Probably whenever you have the time. I actually tell people that you're taking a bath, you have nothing else better to do, repeat this sentence to yourself.
Okay.
You're sitting and eating food, the food is taking time to get prepared. Rather than getting angry about the person who's cooking the food, repeat the sentence to yourself. So now when you keep repeating it in the next 4-5 days, what you realize is when you have that cigarette in your hand, you don't even have to remind yourself. The cigarette itself acts as a trigger for your mind to remind you.
Sure.
And that is why the process becomes so effective. Because if I were to ask a client that when you have a cigarette in your hand, then remember that the last one was your last one, the client will probably do it, but the current thought that, oh, this is my last one, will also come simultaneously.
Right.
And then this is like two thoughts competing with each other, which I would rather want to avoid, because then it's anyone's game. Either of them could win.
True. Thank you so much. Thanks a ton.
You're welcome. All right. So,
So I was correct.
Yeah.
So I was also addressing Nishi's question over there. So Nishi, when we talk about getting rid of memories, generally speaking, that's associated with deeper emotional issues. Right? Now, there are two ways of working with that. One is to actually address the deeper issues. If there's a lot of emotional hurt, there is an alternate way, which is when, so let's say, all right, so I'm taking a bit of an extreme example to help you get an understanding of what I mean. Let's say there's someone who passes away. Now you will notice some people, when they think about the person who passed away, remember them with joy. And some people remember them with sadness. And both of them may have had really good experiences with the other person. But for one person, those positive experiences are becoming a source of joy. For another person, those positive experiences are becoming a source of pain. Right? Now, why does that happen? Is because when you think of that person, either the thought in your head or the image in your head is that is reminding you of a pain, and therefore the pain comes up. So let's say when I think about the person who passed away, and the last image that comes to my mind is of me seeing them on a deathbed, on their deathbed, right? Then, and everyone around me crying. If that's the scene that comes to my mind, the chances that I would be able to remember that person and feel joy is highly unlikely.
Correct.
right? Similarly, if I think of that person and the thought in my head is, if only I would have told them I love you. Okay. I wasn't able to tell the person how important he or she is for me.
Right.
Then because every time you think of that person, that regret comes up, feeling happy will be very difficult. Right? On the other hand, with the same person, someone else, when they see when they think about them, remember a past happy memory that they've had with them. And
Yes.
that's the reason why the smile comes on their face.
Correct.
Right? Or someone else may have a thought, Kichal, whether I expressed it or not, he knew how much he means to me. And that triggers their happiness. So again, what we are looking for is the image of that person or the thought of that person which acts as a trigger. You want to replace that, you want that to be the trigger and replace the following thought or the image with something else.
Perfect.
The replacement of the following thought will again be based on when then. If it's an image based thought that you have in your mind, then there's a process called swish, which we do, right? Which is basically when then in an imagery format, okay? Which is highly effective. As far as Swish is concerned, if you were to just do a YouTube search on Swish, there will be a lot of quick demo videos that you will find, and it's it's not even a 2-minute process. Okay. Or Mamta, can you think of something that you want to Swish? I can probably do a demo.
That I want to swish. Okay, so you can also go from good to better, right?
Yes.
Instead of bad to good.
No, you can go from A to B, whatever A and B is.
Okay. Okay. Yes. Yes.
Okay.
I know. Exactly. I even know the image.
You also know the image. Perfect. So what I want you to do is,
Yeah.
without really telling us what that particular thing is that you want to change,
Right.
I want you to think about that particular thing.
The current scenario?
No, what I want you to think about is the change that you want to create. As in not the new image, but what the trigger is. So let's say you were to say that in the morning when the alarm rings, right? My current thought is I'll fit into that dress. Right? It's motivating, but I would rather like to have that image of me doing more during the day. Right? So the trigger here becomes the alarm.
Okay.
So think of the alarm. Then close your eyes. And as you close your eyes, imagine a canvas in front of you. You know how painting have like.
Yes, I have it.
Perfect. So as you imagine a canvas, on that, imagine the old image that you have. That comes to your mind when you think of the trigger.
Okay, yes.
That image covers the entire frame.
Okay.
Now, you also said that you know the new image?
Yes.
That new image is like a really small, tiny dot somewhere in the corner of that frame, that canvas.
Okay.
Right? Now, as I say 1, 2, and 3 and swish, this small dot will zoom and cover the entire canvas. And the image that was there in the background will shrink and become like a small dot in the background.
Okay, so they'll change position, exchange positions and sizes.
Perfect.
Okay.
So 1, 2, 3, swish, open your eyes.
Okay.
And then close your eyes. Think about the trigger again. And tell me what image comes to your mind, the new one or the old one, or a mixture.
They're like jumping. So.
Okay. So keep the jumping image on the canvas.
Okay.
Somewhere in the corner, a small dot that represents the new image.
Okay.
And then again, as I say 1, 2, and 3, you know what you need to do, right?
Yeah.
So it will be really quick. 1, 2, 3, swish, open your eyes.
Okay.
Once again, close your eyes. Think about the trigger. What image comes to your mind now?
The new one.
completely the new one, or is there still
Yes. So yeah, that's why I'm like looking for it. No, the new one.
Perfect. So then we are done with the process.
Okay.
Right. And again, this is something that you can repeat if required.
Okay.
Generally, I have noticed that most people don't need to repeat it once they've done it.
Mm-hmm.
But if just in case required, especially when it comes to memories and people, because there are multiple things that may trigger that.
Okay.
Right. You may repeat the process also.
That was rapid, like a rapid fire.
It is a rapid fire. So which is actually one of the things that some of these things can be changed really quickly if you really understand how the mind works.
Perfect.
Just before we go ahead, Nishi, kind of subject to terms and condition, that if the emotion are extremely intense, then please visit a therapist. They will be in a better position to help you deal with that. Then it no longer remains a coaching process. Are there ways of helping you do that? The answer is yes. But because we are limiting our discussions to coaching right now, I'm not jumping into that.
Perfect. Okay. So Zeenath had a question about cigarettes. I hope, Zeenath, we have answered your questions. Do let us know if you have any further questions. Okay, Ruchi is going to order a better pillow. Good luck, Ruchi. Neha is saying a client of mine is complaining that after last 3 months in lockdown, now he is feeling anxiety. Trigger is the words depression and suicide.
So again, my question, so while this again goes into therapy, and this is no longer coaching right now, but because I would still probably use when then to begin with, I'm kind of giving you the answer for this. So again, for me, the question to the client will be, so when you hear the word depression and suicide, what thought comes to your mind? What will be the alternate thought that you would like to have? And then switch. So I had one of these clients who had actually come to me with the with suicidal tendency. And when she was working with me, she had told me that, Nitin, every time I have a thought that I may do something to myself, or like, she said that one day I was traveling in an auto with my friend, and my friends had a fight with each other. So in that moment, I had this thought, yaar, isse to main kood jaun to zyada better.
Oh.
Okay. And she says, from that day onwards, I started feeling so uncomfortable because I have these thoughts constantly. कि इससे तो मर जाना better. Okay. And then I start getting worried because I start feeling, what if I do it? So notice the problem is not just the thought that इससे तो मर जाना better है. The problem is that following this thought is another thought, which is, what if I do it?
Yep.
Right? When we discussed and so on, and after some time I asked her, all right, so every thought that you have, do you act upon it? She thought and she said, no, I don't. So I said, so why don't those thoughts bother you? There has to be some reason why this is bothering you. She says, no, I'm able to tell myself, pagal thodi na jo karungi. Okay.
Right.
And this is all I had to do with her. That every time I have a thought, isse to mar jana better hai, then I realize I'm smarter than that.
Perfect.
Okay. So Neha, check if that works. The exception to this again would be if there are a deeper underlying emotional causes that are leading to this. There is one that I've just heard the word depression and suicide so many times that they've got associated. So the moment someone says depression, मुझे लगता है कि suicide, फिर मुझे लगता है कि मैं तो नहीं कर लूंगा कभी. Then there is no real deeper issue associated there. It's just like a mind has created that association which is working against the client. Then a when-then process will be good enough.
Perfect. She asked a follow-up question. Can I also use the switch? I think she's referring to swish. Can I also use swish?
You can if the client has a thought which is not in words but in image. So that's the way the difference is. We prefer when it's verbal thoughts, and swish when it's visual or auditory thoughts.
Perfect. Let us know, Neha, if that answers your question. Ruchi saying, is this like inception, planting of a thought in the subconscious?
It is to some extent. But what we have discussed is actually not as much like inception, but yes, when we do the entire thing in a hypnotic state, it becomes like inception.
Right. And in inception, they're planting thoughts which are not the person's, they're just forcibly planting thoughts which are not their own.
Yeah, so that probably is a difference. We don't do that.
Okay, Maitri is asking, what about studying? Can we apply this technique with learning? I think she's referring to when then.
Maitri, you can. In fact, with kids, doing when then is very effective, because for children, it becomes like a game that they're playing. Again, because it's rhythmic, it's kind of a tune. You can also add a background music to it if you want for them, or you can ask them to add a background music to it. So it becomes like very entertaining kind of a thing for them.
Cool. Let us know, Maitri, if you have
also, Maitri, if you combine this with anchoring, where you can help the child understand what state will be supportive of studying. So, for example, a child says that, if I'm able to focus and concentrate better, then I'll be able to study well. You can actually, so I work with with students where I've asked them to tell me what state were they most focused in. They told me while playing a video game. I took them into that memory, anchored the video game wala memory where we picked the feeling of focus and concentration, the mental state of focus and concentration, and anchored it. And then we connected it, the same state, with the studies or with that particular subject that the child wanted to study. And it worked very well for us.
Perfect. Sounds
in fact, coincidentally, because in kids' cases, it's the parents who generally bring the children to you, right? So the parents kept complaining to me कि नहीं अभी भी हमको लगता नहीं उतनी देर के लिए पढ़ रहा है जितनी देर के लिए पढ़ना चाहिए इसको, right? But when his results came, the family members were like really flat because they told me that we could have never expected him to score so much. And his response was that I was able to focus so well that I did not need to study so long.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's interesting. Okay. Hope, Maitri, you have your answer. Noor is asking, if a person says, I don't feel pleasure in anything, even though I punch myself into things, how to deal with this?
So, Noor, I'm not sure what does punch myself into things actually mean. But if a client says that I am not, or if a person says that I don't feel a pleasure in anything, one, I think it's a bit of a stretch. Anything is like too generic. Having said that, this can happen with people who are suffering from generalized anxiety or who are like reaching a state of depression, because there the feeling becomes really sustained. And if that's happening, then it's more of a therapy case. In terms of if that's not the case, and if the client is like currently in that state where, for example, we are in a lockdown and we are constantly home, and therefore there's this constant feeling of boredom that's there, right? Then you can ask them, tell me the specific areas that you want to feel interested about. Right? So it's kind of, again, difficult to work with people in a way in which you can tell them that you will feel excited or happy about everything. Ask them what are the specific 2, 3, 4 things that you want them to feel excited about. And just work with those 2, 3 things using when, then, and anchoring, and it should work. But if you try to like create a wholesome change in their life, then with what we have discussed, it's difficult. There are other processes, but then this is not probably a format in which I can either demonstrate that or explain that.
Perfect. Nitin, on Facebook, we have a question from Nidhi. So if a child says, I don't want to make a timetable for myself because it makes me feel tired, what strategy can be applied?
So as a child, first, when you think of creating a timetable, what thought comes to your mind? Which is, it will make me feel tired. Instead of this, what thought will make you feel better to create a timetable? Right? And I can work with that. And if I'm not, yeah, I think I worked with this client. So I'm just thinking whether I worked with this client or someone shared a case study with me and then I guided them. So I think if I remember correctly, then I worked with this client where the child said something like this, not the child, it was an adult who said something like this, that people keep telling me plan and like create timetable, create a schedule, but mujhe lagta hai that I'll get bound by it, and I am a free soul. Okay, I want to flow with the flow of life. So I asked them, how is that working for you? Obviously, it's not working. That's the reason they were sitting in front of me, right? So that was like a trick question. So they said, yeah, it's not working for me. So I said, so would you like to change it? They said, but the whole idea of creating a schedule bothers me and I'm not able to create it. I said, all right. So the moment you think of creating a schedule or a timetable, what comes to your mind? And they told me that the first thing that comes to my mind is that this will bound me. This will restrict me. I asked them, logically think and tell me, what is the advantage of creating a schedule? Why do you want to create it? And they said, if I logically tell you, the truth is, if I create the schedule and I stick to it, then the chances are very high that I'll have more free time for myself. So I said, what will be a new thought based on this? They created the thought, we created a when then. When I have to create a schedule, then I realize this will allow me to get more free time. Once that idea got fixed in their head, then they felt relatively more comfortable creating a plan of action, or sorry, relating a timetable.
Perfect. Perfect. Okay. Ruchi is asking, I believe any sort of trauma will need therapy? Question mark.
Any sort of trauma, any kind of intense negative emotions will require therapy.
Perfect. Dr. Pooja says, one of my clients has a habit of getting into palmistry, though she starts seeing YouTube for her work and ends up wasting time every day. So anchoring would be helpful, I know. What about swish in such cases?
I would say Venden would be even more effective. Even compared to anchoring, I'll probably do Venden first. Because the moment she's on YouTube and she sees that first, let's say, video of palmistry, that is a very clear trigger. Now, in her head, if you could create this association between watching that video and wasting her time, okay, or something like, I can watch this later after I've completed my work, then it will, the awareness of the thought will automatically have a tendency to push her back into her work.
Right.
So I will club anchoring with Venden over there. I can do swish also, but Venden I think would be more apt.
Perfect. Okay. Vishu on Facebook says, yes, I do use a specific pillow to sleep. Good for you, Vishu. Neha is saying, yes, his mind just associated with the words. She's talking about the person who gets triggered by the words depression. Yes, I'll find out if it is auditory, visual or not.
Perfect. Any other questions that any of us have?
Nitin, now that we're talking about like a wide range of problems and things, and like you have an answer to almost all of them. My question is, although we keep straying into therapy at times, my question is, what all, a coach can help people with, or why should people visit a coach? Like, which problems can a coach help with, and so on.
So technically, whenever you are in position A and you want to go to position B.
Okay, which is all the time.
Which is all the time, where you are not getting overwhelmed with emotions.
Okay.
You can visit a coach. Now, to give you more specific examples, let's say you don't know what goals to set.
Correct.
You can visit a coach.
Okay.
You don't know how to create a plan of action. You can visit a coach.
Okay.
You have a goal, you have a plan of action, but you're still not following it.
Visit a coach.
You can visit a coach, right? Now, goals can be in the area of your profession.
Okay.
They can be in the area of your relationships, right? They can be in the area of health. They can be in the area of social life.
Personal growth.
Personal growth. You may even have goals related to spirituality.
Yeah.
Okay. For each of these, you can visit a coach.
Wow.
Because the coaching process remains the same.
Okay.
Right. Now, when I spoke about work, in work, let's say you have a business and you feel you're not able to take the next step required to grow.
Correct.
A coach can help you with that.
Okay.
You feel you're not able to manage your team effectively.
Okay.
A coach can help you with that.
All right.
You want to expand into your business into a particular direction, but you're feeling stuck somewhere. A coach can help you over there.
Okay.
Right? You are a service class person who is actually doing a job.
Yeah.
Right? You are a salaried person. You are doing a job. Now, you can visit a coach to be able to enhance your performance, improve your performance, which can then eventually mean greater results, more income, and a promotion. Right? There are places that I also know. There are, for example, clients who are working in a job where they want to switch the job because they're not happy with it.
Yeah.
But they feel this reluctance to be able to apply for a new job. A coach can even help you there.
Okay.
Right? So as long as you want to achieve an outcome, you can visit a coach. If you're an organization, and especially for organizations, for example, who have employees, and some of those employees you feel have the caliber, but they are not able to translate that caliber into action. In the demo sessions and in the training programs, they do really well. But something happens to them when they're in front of the real life client.
Okay.
So, and you know, I've had like friends who have these organizations, they say that it's so frustrating because you feel this is like potential. You don't want to leave that person go. And you can't, how long can you give them chances?
Correct.
Right? That's where organizations can seek help of coaches. To help those people that they think have potential, to be able to maximize that potential and act upon it. If you have employees who have gone through training programs but are not showing the potential also, you may want to try a couple of sessions to see if that potential can be enhanced, right? Or to assess whether it will be better for those employees to be passed on.
Okay. Okay. Nitin, you spoke about, like, I think that covers almost everybody. Entrepreneurs, I guess, will also fit in, right? People who just want to grow and so on. Consultants, coaches themselves.
So one of the things that, for example, one of the things that we are planning to do in future, right, is actually have a complete group coaching sessions for coaches.
Okay, and that will be about?
On setting up their practice.
Oh, wow, that's a wonderful idea.
Because I have come across so many coaches who have got trained.
Yeah.
But are still uncomfortable setting up their own practice.
Or, making it grow. So they have told people they have a practice, but it's not going anywhere.
Correct. At least not going up to the level where they think it should have gone.
Yeah, exactly. Or they don't have enough clients, or they think that they are doing good work, yet somehow they don't have enough clients. Right.
Perfect.
That's interesting. Okay, that's something to look forward to. Nitin, but you made one exception. You said wherever you are not overwhelmed by emotions. So what is a measure of, how do I know when I'm overwhelmed, and when do I go to a coach, when do I go to a therapist, for a lay person?
So for a lay person, whenever you feel that you're experiencing a negative emotion continuously for 2-3 days.
Okay.
Visit a therapist. You can still go to a coach, but ideally then the coach should refer you to a therapist if they realize that the feeling is
okay,
something that the client is not able to sustain.
Perfect. So if anyone has any last questions, because we are again running ahead of time, you can ask us. Meanwhile, Nitin, I have 2 questions about the course itself. So one is, Nidhi is asking on Facebook, will the SoftC course incorporate all this that you're talking about?
So Nidhi, we have actually transitioned our SoftC course into the cognitive hypnotic coaching course now. So SoftC becomes a part of cognitive hypnotic coaching, and in that all of this is covered. If you want, you can check out the details at coaching.ichars.com. I'm sharing the link with you, so you can check that out.
Nidhi, I hope you have your answers. And Vikram is asking you to share the details of the group coaching that you just mentioned.
Vikram, we have tentatively decided that. We have not yet declared the dates for it right now. So probably by the next session, I will be in a better position to give you more details about it. That program will happen for sure. We are just trying to figure out our dates, because with the main coaching programs going online, the dates are slightly a bit of a miss right now. So we're scheduling that for now. Vikram, if you could share your contact number with me. So I'm sharing my number with all of you so that I can keep you in mind and I can share those details with you.
Perfect.
Any other questions that any of you have, please feel free to share.
If any of you have any questions, or if we have missed any questions that you already asked, please do that now. Otherwise, I think we have come to the end of today's episode.
So thank you, everyone. It was really nice having all of you here. I'm going to first switch off the
Okay, Facebook. So thank you everyone on Facebook. Bye-bye.
So thank you everyone on Facebook. Bye-bye. Take care. I hope to see all of you back again next week, 7:30.
7:30 Thursday.